Early than
that
late.
time.
Wow, we're live. Today is the 3rd of May, 2023. This is episode 442 of Hump Hangouts, and very welcome. And I'm super happy that you join us today. I think Adam is out at some wedding or something like that in another country, so we probably will miss him today. But other than that, I had a pretty sweet weekend here in Austria, long weekend. Half of Europe is probably on holiday still because 1st of May is public holiday in most of the countries. I enjoyed it as well. Was another hike and was pretty good. And was quite a change because all the other days I basically was working on SEO audits and learning a couple new procedures. Bradley is laughing. I'm happy I'm mostly done with it. But yeah, like it was like evil, but I'm super happy that it's done. Like clients are happy as well. That's always good and happy it's over. How are you today, Bradley?
I'm good, but explain why the audits are so painful, because they're so thorough.
Yeah, like because we're going depths, like also like the errors and mistakes that we see partly. It's like, how could somebody miss this? Like completely basic stuff often, right? Like even if you're doing multiple audits, like you almost get blind. Like you almost literally gotta stick to the checklist, otherwise you oversee yourself basics, because like it's obvious, like it's nobody would miss this, you would never miss this, and then it's like you look into it closer and it's like, of course that's missing. Like It is what it is.
Yeah, I mean they're painful to do. I don't like to do them, but they're necessary. I don't like to do them because I cannot help but to provide training throughout the audit, not just like here's what can be improved and this is what you should do to improve it. I also try to explain why this is what I'm recommending, because my point is, if somebody's going to invest in an audit, I don't want them to keep coming back and buying more audits because I don't want to do it. So I'd rather be very thorough in the audit and send that to them so that they can learn what to look for on their own. And, that's the give a man a fish or teach a man a fish type thing. You know what I mean? Like teach a man two fish. So, I can't help but make my audits incredibly thorough, and it takes just an enormous amount of time. I shouldn't be doing them for that reason, but at the same time, every time I do that, it does help whoever it is that received the audit. At least it should, if they implement what I mentioned, and hopefully it helps them to become better SEOs. So that's kind of the point.
That's the thing. Like we hate to do it. At the same time, we still learn a lot, even if we've done like plenty of audits. There's always something new to discover.
But as you said, it's funny because sometimes, we're not going to call out any names, but sometimes in these audits, I'll see somebody says, "Man, I'm having trouble with my site's not ranking." Yeah, well, maybe you should remove the no index tag. Like, come on, man. You're supposed to be an SEO. How you submit a site for auditing that has a no index tag? So like it's set to no index. Come on, man. But it happens. So
yeah, like people are just trying to test us and tease us, like to see if we do it like properly and actually see any mistakes.
It's amazing. I mean, it's just, again, I'm not picking on anybody in particular, but it's amazing to see people that call themselves SEOs and have the balls to go out and sell SEO services, and they don't even have a basic understanding of on-page optimization. It's amazing. It just goes to show you don't have to know what you're doing in this business to be able to sucker people into giving you money. You know what I mean? Like, and it's true. And there's a lot of that unfortunately, and that's part of the reason that SEOs have a bad name, right? Is because of people like that. So it's still an opportunity to learn, in my opinion. For somebody comes and they submit a project that is horribly optimized or something like that, then that's an opportunity for them to learn. So I don't knock them for it. But I also, and I don't know if because I haven't reviewed any of your audits, Chris, but I learned very quickly after sending out the first couple of audits that I have to preface at the beginning of every audit video, like, hey, please don't take this personally. I'm just sharing information. Yeah. I'm not picking on you or your abilities. I always have to say that because after the first couple of audits that I delivered, I could tell that people's feelings were hurt. And I'm just like, wait a minute, man, you paid money for me to give you my advice. I'm not picking on you personally. It's just data. It's just information. You know what I mean? So don't take it personally. It's just business, So anyway.
I just literally took that over from you. Like it is what it is. Also, Cecilia mentioned like sometimes you need that third party eye to literally see it. So because like you're blinded in the rut.
Yeah, you can't see the forest through the trees.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what that means. Yeah, exactly. Cecilia's right. Sometimes you just need a neutral party to review it, right? So
Definitely. Anyways, are there any announcements like what has been happening in on your Twitch channel? Did you do anything this week?
Yeah, I did a lot of cussing as always, which I do every morning. A lot of that. No, but I finally got the local directory. So the local subdomain for the directory, which is the lead gen side of things. I got the clone file created from my local directory, local site for the TreeCare HQ directory, and then I de-optimized it to make it basically like a generic clone template for the SOP for. So that's good. I finally got that done today. Thank God. It took all week, or well, today's Wednesday, so 3 days. And then next week I'm going to start probably on the SOPs for integrating Yaks with it, because having pretty good results from that. Only one test that I did with that, and it's performing well. So I'm going to work on that next week too. But we are plugging along. On Monday, May 15th. We're going to start the beta group in the mastermind for this whole process, what I call the directory hybrid agency now, because it's kind of a combination of the rank and rent model and the directory stuff that so I'm calling it the directory hybrid agency. That's the name I've settled on, at least for today. And we start on May 15th, Monday, May 15th, the beta group. I think there's 6 members now. I'm thinking about potentially opening it up for 4 more to have a group of 10. So I'm going to post probably in the mastermind next week, maybe Monday or Tuesday next week about that. And it will be the remaining slots that are open will probably require some sort of a brief call with me to determine, because if there's more interest than 4 is what I'm saying. I think I'm going to open it up for 4 more people. We'll have 10 people in the group that will help me to finish developing that over the course of the next 6 or 8 weeks. So pretty excited about it.
If you're not in the mastermind yet, make sure you join us. I'll post the link shortly. Also, always remember, make sure that you like and subscribe our YouTube channel so you don't miss any updates. And also check out our Twitter channel. Like I know, like I've been on the easy side so far, but something is coming, as I mentioned. Just make sure you don't miss out on it then. Any other announcements?
Not
let's
that I
jump
know of.
into questions, because I think people joined by now.
Right on.
Hybrid SEO would be a cool name, yeah.
Yep. Right on. All right. Well, let's get into pre-posted questions. There weren't too many, but there were a few. So we'll grab the screen and we'll jump into it.
Perfect.
Oh, by the way, just to be clear, I want to kind of announce this now. It's not going to matter. It never does, but I'm taking off from Friday through Monday, or till Sunday night. I'll be back to work on Monday. But I'm unplugging from the matrix for 3 fucking days off the grid. Everyone can just piss off if no, I'm kidding. Typically I try to announce that because I want people to know, like, if you post questions in the group or something and I don't answer you, don't take it personally. It's just, I'm gone for a couple of days. Please allow me to decompress. And the thing is funny because every time I try to announce that ahead of time, it's like, I always do it because I'm going ATVing again. So I'm taking off Friday through Sunday. I'm going to be in West Virginia in the fucking mountains. So really, really spotty cell service. So I don't even want to look at my phone for 3 days if I can. However, every time I announce that, it's always that Friday when I say that's the first day I'm taking off that, like, I get 15,000 support messages. So, and I was talking to Adam yesterday on our corporate meeting, and Adam's the same way as I am. If I know that I have a support related issue, it bugs the shit out of me. I can't ignore it. I have to resolve it. You know what I mean? So it's like, I always run the danger of looking at my phone when I'm on it, when I try to take off, because if I look at my phone and I see something work related come up, I have to resolve it. And so it's very difficult to do. And I'm going to try to be disciplined this weekend and just ignore everybody until Monday. The problems will be there when I get back. You know what I mean? So
make sure, in case you want to order one of Bradley's backlink services or something like that on Reddit, make sure you use the discount code Semantic for 10% off.
That's right.
But make all sure that you're not flooding him on Friday. So make sure the latest to get your order in is Thursday.
Well, just know that if I don't answer you, it's not because you're not important. It's just because I'm off the grid, and I need that. I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to feel burned out after 4 months of 6 and 7 days a week at 12 to 14 hours a day. And that's not a joke. And I just need to take a break for a couple of days.
You're going to the shooting range?
No, I'm going to go ride, but that's what I do to
Sweet.
release stress. Moving on, let's get into some SEO, guys. Here we go. First one is from Royce. Hi, Bradley. The land flipping business model sounds super interesting. It's amazing, Royce. I really like that business. That's something I want to do for retirement once I get out of the SEO business. So if one was to start doing land flipping from scratch, how long do you think it'll take one to start being profitable? In other words, what's the learning curve for someone without prior experience in real estate land? Okay, so when I started flipping land in April of 2019, well, it was March when I bought the course, $1,500 at the time. I don't know what it costs now. But I had flipped houses from 2003 to 2008. So I was very familiar with real estate and contract law and closings or settlements and creative real estate and how to flip like wholesale real estate, what they call an assignment of contract, or you can do what's called a double closing, which I don't recommend because you get double the closing. Well, it's not quite double, but it's like 150% of the closing costs and all that. Plus there's other tax implications to double closings that you're better off doing an assignment of contract. Trust me, for tax reasons and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, the reason I say that is because I had some prior experience with flipping real estate in houses. And then when I got into the land flipping business, because I had prior experience, I only spent a month studying that in March. And then in April, I launched my landing page, which is still live today, alphaland.realty, ALPHA, alphaland.realty. It's still live today. It's still ranking, even though I haven't done anything to it in 2 years for Sell Land Fast, Virginia. But I did it in a month. So in March, I studied. In April, I launched it's just a ClickFunnels landing page, and I set up a Google Ads campaign, and I started doing direct mail. And within the I sent out my first mail campaign the first week in April. By the second week of April, or April 15th, somewhere around there, I had already had, however many responses I had, and I ended up making offers on 80% of the responses I had, which I typically do. I recommend trying to make offers to all of them, even if it's a property you don't have any idea how you're going to make money off of it or anything else. You just make a really crazy low ball offer, period. If you make it low enough, you can make money, right? You don't make money on the sale. You make money on the purchase with real estate. Seriously, it's all in how you buy it. And so within 3 weeks, I had 5 properties locked up under contract, and I flipped 4 out of those 5. One of them, I had to let the contract expire because I couldn't get a buyer. And that was in part because it was in a gated community that required you had to have owner's permission to show it and all that. It was just too difficult to sell. So I didn't sell that one. Out of the 4 properties that I did end up selling, remember, I had 5 under contract. I ended up closing on 4 of them. The first one that I closed on, no shit, I made $14,995. I got the closing statements to show it. I made just under 15K in less than 30 days. My doing that business, no shit. And I was hooked after that. I was like, yeah, oh yeah, where have you been all my life? You know what I mean? And so consistently beyond that point, I made at least 4 figures per month. About half of the months that I did it for 2 years, I made 5 figures. I never cracked 20. The most I ever made in 1 year or 1 month, was 18,000 from real estate alone. But that's damn good money. It was part-time. At least initially I worked a lot to kind of learn it and develop the processes and the systems and everything else. But eventually I had my executive assistant, Hazel, take over most of the business for me. And I just really handled the sales part of things and the closings. And I would write the offers. But that was all done via US mail, like literally direct mail. I would write the offers and send written contracts out. And then I would handle the sales and then the closings. That's what I would do. And then everything else I outsourced to my executive assistant. She did everything for me once I developed the processes. So eventually it went from, I was working 20, 25, 30 hours a week, at least initially, to down the last 6 or 8 months that I ran that business. I only had anywhere, I would say an average of 8 hours a week on the business to make that kind of money. It was really good. So with no experience, I would say it's probably going to take you, again, depends on how much time you have to invest it and everything else. But if you just follow the plan, like Jack Bosch's Land Profit Generator is a really good course for that. That's the one that I used. In fact, I had bought it back in like 2008. No shit. I bought the first, I met Jack Bosch at a real estate investment association meeting in Washington, DC in 2008, right at the end of my business when I was flipping houses, because I went bankrupt. If you guys remember, in 2007, the real estate market crashed in the United States, which it's likely going to happen again. At least our currency is going to crash. That's inevitable now. Banks are failing anyway. Point that I'm trying to make is in 2007, the real estate market tanked in the United States, and I lost my ass. And I tried to hang on for about another year. And that's only because I should have stuck. By the way, I'm giving you anybody that's interested in potentially doing real estate. Let me give you a word of advice. Stick to wholesaling, which is flipping, right? Flipping is wholesaling. You don't even need to take ownership. You just got to lock them up under contract, and then you market the contract. You're literally selling a contract. You're not selling real estate. You're selling a contract. You're not in the real estate investment business. You're in the marketing business. You understand? You're not an investor unless you buy and hold, right? So anyway, don't get into rehabbing houses and stuff like that, or anything that you got to tie up a bunch of capital, especially if you're starting off. Stick with wholesaling, flipping, assignments of contract, because it's literally no money, even what they call earnest money or binder deposits. I would send $1. I'm not kidding. That's all the earnest money you need to make it a binding contract. It's a binder deposit, right? Anyways, stick to wholesaling, because you have no risk other than your binder deposit, your earnest money. So if you're putting $5 down on a contract to make it, that's a binder deposit, right? That makes it legally binding. That's your risk. Seriously, or in whatever time you invest in trying to market the property. But remember, all you're doing is marketing the contract. You're in the marketing business, not the real estate business. You understand? So trust me, it's the best way to do it. It's the safest way to do it. You can make money with little to no capital, little to no risk. And the tax implications are so much better when you're just flipping contracts than it is when you're buying and flipping and actually taking ownership of property, where you can get hit with capital gains tax, short-term or long-term, if you're holding it for, anyway, point I'm trying to make is, if you're just starting off, 2 words of advice. Number 1, follow the plan. Don't deviate. Something like Jack Bosch's Land Profit Generator is a great course. And stick with simple wholesaling transactions. I know it can be attractive to look at, for example, like if you lock a piece of property up under contract that has no survey and it hasn't had a perk test, which means can you put a septic system on the property for sewage and stuff like that? A perk also, so if it doesn't have a survey and it doesn't have a perk test, for example, that makes it less marketable. So if you just invest a little bit of money in getting a survey done and getting a perk test done, and it passes and says, it's suitable for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house or something like that, whatever. Now you have a property, you've just increased the value by just knowing that it's available, that you have a survey and you also have a perk test. And now you've made that more marketable, right? So you can raise your price, and it's more attractive to others as well, because it already has some of this stuff done, right? The research, the feasibility studies done, if that makes sense. However, now you've got risk involved, and trust me, I know, because when I started flipping land, that was one of the things that I thought I was going to be smart. And I was like, well, I'm going to increase the value of these properties by paying out of pocket for surveys and perk tests and things like that. But sometimes the people that you have the property under contract with will renege on their contract. How do I know this? Well, because there was a couple of times I ended up losing the money that I put into perk tests and surveys. And sometimes that was $2,000-$3,000 because the sellers backed out of their contract. And yes, I did take them to small claims court. And yes, I did get judgments, but those judgments are levied against those properties. So unless they try to sell those properties to somebody else, I'll never see that money. Does that make sense? I'll never recover my money that I invested in perk tests on other people's properties, because I wasn't the owner. I was just contract owner, if that makes sense. So the point that I'm trying to make is, don't try to, I thought I was, smart and experienced enough that I would be able to, increase the value of the properties and maximize profit potential. But there's risk involved in that. And it adds a layer of complexity that really can be avoided, especially if you're starting off. Just flip contracts. I'm not kidding. The easiest thing to get started. It's the easiest way to learn. So just do that. And then, eventually, as you kind of start making profit consistently. What I recommend is systematizing the business as much as possible, developing systems or hiring personnel, things like that, that you can offload a lot of the work to where you can focus on the things that, make the most revenue, which again is making offers. Also for me, like I said, I did all the sales and everything else. If you're just starting off, like I said, I would say probably, if you stick to the simple stuff that I just described, land flipping is great for this, because to learn, to cut your teeth on, because for example, I would lock a property up under contract for 6 months. My closing date was 6 months out from the date that they accepted the contract, 180 days. And occasionally I would get pushback from that, but usually I would just say, listen, I've got a lot of properties in the pipeline currently, deals that are pending closing, all that kind of stuff. My capital's locked up, which is all bullshit, because they're just flipping contracts. I didn't need any capital. That was just the excuse that I would use for an extended closing date. That gave me 6 months to market that property, to find a buyer. Right. And so if you stick to that kind of stuff, then, again, you can start to really kind of build up a pipeline full of leads and properties that are contracts that you're a contract owner. And you've got all these things that some are going to close, some aren't, some are going to take longer to close than others, et cetera. But the point is, you kind of build that up. And then once you get, 4 or 5 months into it, that's when you start getting closings like once a week, two times a week. Sometimes our closings, you might make $1,500. That's your profit on flipping a contract. So be it. It's money. Other times you'll make 15 grand. And I've heard of people, like I said, I never made more than 18,000 in 1 month. But I've heard of people that, make 45, 50, 60, sometimes 200K on one flip. So it's definitely possible. It's a fantastic business model, man. It really is. Jack Bosch, like I started to say, and Jack Bosch, I met him in Washington, D.C. at a Real Estate Investors Association meeting in 2008. And that was at the end of, it was at the very end of my house flipping business. And I was just teetering on bankruptcy at the time. And so I bought his course because I was like, I lost my ass in the housing market because and this is why I started to tell you guys, don't add complexity if you're going to get into real estate flipping. I started originally wholesaling houses, so flipping houses. I was doing double closings back then, not assignments of contract. That was many years ago. But then because of my construction experience, remember, I was an electrician for almost 20 years. And I worked for a lot of that time in residential electrical work. So I was familiar with rehabbing, like residential construction. So I said, man, why am I flipping houses for roughly 6 to 8 grand on profit? Usually was my average, when I could buy it, rehab it, and sell it and make 40 or 50 or 60K in profit. But then there's all those challenges of managing contractors, and you tie a lot of capital up. There's a lot of risk. And what happened was in 2007, I had because I got into doing full rehabs. Like I would buy ugly houses that, were awful, horrid houses. And I would go in and gut them down to their bare frame, replace electrical, HVAC, plumbing, sometimes framing because of termite damage, all that kind of stuff. Literally, we would completely rebuild the house. And so I had 3 projects that, because the real estate market tanked, the after repaired value fell below what I acquired the properties for, not including the $60,000 or $80,000 construction work that had to be done to bring this houses up to saleable condition. So I literally lost everything. And I ended up going bankrupt. I filed corporate bankruptcy, not personal, and in 2008. But that's when I bought the Jack Bosch course originally, because I was thinking, well, I'm going to get out of the house business and flip land. And I literally attempted it back in 2008, but I was so disgusted with the real estate business at the time, which I shouldn't have been disgusted with real estate. I should have been better and reduced my risk. You know what I mean? I shouldn't have been so risky is what I'm saying. But anyway, then in 2019, when I decided I wanted to consider flipping real estate again, I looked at getting back into flipping houses again. And I realized how fucking competitive it was because of the, popularity of like fix and flip TV shows and everything else. And it's just a saturated market, in my opinion, in the housing market. So I thought about it. I was like, man, I remember this goofy, like, don't tell him I told them that, but this German guy named Jack Bosch, land, whatever. And I went on Google and started searching and I found him. Sure enough, he's still teaching it. So he had an updated course and I ended up buying the updated course. And that's why I said I went through that. And within 30 days, I studied for 30 days and then I implemented it and launched it. And within the first 30 days, I'm not kidding, I made 15K very first month. So fantastic business model, guys. I love it to death. I do. I can't do that too. I just don't have the bandwidth for it. So, but that's something that I want to do kind of in, for retirement. I enjoyed that question. If you couldn't tell, it's a great business model, guys. Anybody that's not already like 100% committed to SEO, you may want to consider it. It's a great business model. And by the way, you can use SEO to generate leads for that business, but they're not nearly as targeted. What I found was I didn't like the leads. I mean, I would still make offers on leads that came through SEO or from Google Ads, but it's better if you direct your marketing through like direct mail to landowners in particular counties, because it becomes much easier and much more efficient to research those leads that responded, because all the properties are in the same GIS system or tax roll system, if that makes sense. So it's easier to research the properties and also to develop comparable sales. So what the market value of properties are, the estimated market values and things like that, when everything's grouped in the same kind of geographic location. So it's more efficient if you use direct mail for generating leads than it is SEO or Google Ads, in my opinion. It's just easier to run the business that way. Anyway, moving on, guys. I'm sorry I spent so much time on that, but I enjoyed that question. So thank you, Royce. He says, to follow up on my previous question, if one was to start doing land flipping, what does the upfront investment look like for the business? In other words, how much does one have to spend on education, operating the business, et cetera? You got to pay for the course it takes money to make money. If you're going to buy, like Jack Bosch's course, like I said, was $1,500 the last time I bought it. I have no idea what it is now. It's worth it though, if you implement it. If you don't take action, it's not worth it, right? As far as startup capital, you really don't need much other than it would be good if you had a landing page that you could send people to. But they're a dime a dozen. You can go to AppSumo and find a deal that, landing page builder, whatever. Just find a landing page builder, build a landing page with a lead capture form, property. Go look at mine. You can go look at alphaland.realty and model that. I'm not kidding. I have no problem with that, guys. I'm not running that business now anyways. Alphaland, ALPHA, land.realty, REALTY. And go look at that. That's just that's a ClickFunnels landing page, and the property information worksheet is here. So you can see that here if you wanted to go through that and see what the survey looks like for the questions that we ask. Something else I recommend is to use an answering service, because a lot of the people that you're going to send direct mail to for property, to purchase properties or to make offers, are older folks, and they don't use the PC computers. They're going to want to call. So I recommend setting up an answering service that will, with the script. Jack Bosch, I think, has a script in his course. If not, reach out to me. I've got a script you can borrow. No kidding. I'll send it to you. I've got no problem with that. I even have I use Answer Connect, but another service. This is what I use for my answering service. I've been using them since 2014. I use them for my SEO projects as well. But there's another one that is more directly set up for real estate. I've not used them, but I know a lot of people that have. It's called patlive.com. They're more geared towards real estate business. But anyway, have an answering service, have a landing page. Then you send direct mail to owners. So it doesn't cost much for that. I mean, depending on the answering service that you use, you might have to spend $200 or $300 a month on that. Landing page service, very inexpensive. You can do that, basically for free, just about. And then you just need a little bit of budget for direct mail. That's it. So, I would send out roughly anywhere between 1,000 to 2,000 letters a month, to 250 to 500 letters per week is what I would send out. And I think my overall cost with everything, let's see, offers to owners is the mail service I use, because they print and everything. Offers to owners. This is the mail service I used. And I think it was, at the time I did it to a couple of years ago, it was like, I think 59 cents for per letter that's mailed. You upload your merge file and they handle everything. So it's all done online. It's like, I think it's like 59 or 6, it was 59. It might be a little bit more now, but it was like 60 cents. So, if I sent out 1,000 letters, it would cost me roughly $600. If I sent out 2,000 letters, roughly $1,200. So I do that per month. But every time I would send out, not every time, but once I especially found particular areas to target that would return a lot of responses from a mailing, I would hit that same area once per 3 or 4 months. So 3 or 4 times per year, I would hit that same county, if that makes sense, that same mailing list, because time and circumstance changes for people, right? everything changes in time with time and circumstance. I don't know what the appropriate way to say that is, but the point that I'm trying to make is also that's called farming. What, by the way, when you hit the same list over and over again, and in real estate, you almost like it's brand recognition, right? Same thing in SEO. It's like remarketing and everything else. If you keep hitting the same mailing list with letters once every quarter or once or twice a year or something like that, vacant landowners who are just paying taxes on land are, they'll see that offer coming through, that brand coming through over and over again. And eventually they may change their mind. Like, you know what? I'm tired of paying taxes. That's what I heard a lot from the people that would accept my ridiculously low offers, like offensively low offers. I would hear that oftentimes. They would tell me like, yeah, you know what? I'm just sick and tired of paying taxes on this damn property. I'll just get rid of it. I don't care if you steal it from me. Like, I'm serious. I heard that all the time. And so that's a really good business model to be in, man. Anyway.
People are already nervous because you're talking about real estate more than SEO today.
Yeah, that's okay. It's okay. Somebody asked and I wanted to share it. It's a great model, man. It really is. It's a good business. If you're in the, you don't have to be in the United States to do it, but if you are, I mean, it's a great business. It's not a full-time gig. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. All right, we'll get into the SEO questions. Sorry, guys. Next. Raylene says, if we were to get started doing, oh my God, it's all about land flipping today. What the fuck? Here's another one. These got to be different.
You're kidding me, man.
Yeah, I'm not kidding.
Rush through it, man.
Is it better to learn from Jack Bosch or join? No, go to Jack Bosch. I don't teach other than what I just described. And that's about the extent of the teaching I'm going to do on real estate, because I don't have the bandwidth to do that now, guys. I got 4 SEO agencies I'm running now, so I can't do that. So no, go to Jack Bosch, not me. We already answered that question. I would say you're probably going to need, with direct mail costs, I would say budget about at least $1,000 a month. But remember, guys, do it right. You're going to get a return every month. Every fucking month you spend $1,000. If you're doing it right, you will get a return. There's no question. So don't look at it as an expense. Look at it as an investment. Okay. Can you sell land leads? Yeah, I don't know. I know there's some of our SEO peeps do that. They generate leads for real quick turn real estate businesses, mostly in the housing market. But some do it. I know some people that do that in the land business too. So you can generate leads and sell them for sure. Yeah. And I know that a lot of the real estate house flipper guys, they'll buy, if you can generate quality leads, they'll buy them from you for sure. No question. So new website, new domain, how to start building authority and links without being sandboxed. Not really much you can do, Mark. It's kind of a probationary period. That's why I've talked about this a lot. I typically like to deploy sites and then kind of just leave them alone and let them, what I call marinate or season for a while, for a few weeks before I really start doing, I'll still do things like branded entity assets, continuing to build supporting asset, branded assets for the entity. So expanding the entity footprint, all the stuff that I always talk about. We'll also, build links to those kind of tier 1 branded assets and things like that. But I typically don't do a lot to the direct to the site until after about 6 weeks. Once I first deploy it, I like to just kind of let it sit for a little while and index, and it kind of passes through that probationary period, so to speak, which you're calling a sandbox. I think what happens is it's similar to like if you go in and make a significant on-page change, and then it kind of goes through a probationary period with that, where it goes through a Google dance, and it's almost like Google's setting it's like a mouse trap, right? Google's like setting a trap. It says, okay, we're going to wait and see if he comes back. If they come back in and fiddle around with it some more, then we're going to put them we're going to penalize them or put them in a sandbox, because now we know it's an SEO. You know what I mean? So sometimes it makes sense to make changes or like deploy a new site and leave it sit for a few weeks. And that's typically what I like to do. A lot of the times, just letting the stuff sit for a while, I've noticed recently, it starts to rank on its own. And I've kind of seen a lot of that stuff with the tree service testing that I've been doing over the last few months, because some of these stuff were tests that I set up 2 or 3 months ago, and I've done nothing with them since. And 2 or 3 months later, they're ranking. Like, no kidding. And I've not even built links to them or anything else. So there's a lot to be said for just allowing some time to pass before, you know, pulling out all your ammunition and guns ablazing and all that stuff, if that makes sense. I think if you overdo it too soon, then you automatically get put into like a sandbox, as you mentioned. And it's hard to get out of that. So sometimes just being patient is the best thing, in my opinion. How to build links to Google Business Profile. The same way, you mean like, so what's the target URL? The best thing to do is a map embed, or build links to the share URL, or build links to the Google Business Profile, excuse me, the Google Business website. If you publish it and it's optimized properly, you know, just publishing the Google Business website with no content, not optimized properly, does nothing. So save your time. Don't waste your time. But if you do it properly, the Google Business website is a very, very, very powerful part of the local entity. Put well-optimized content. You can put about 2,500 words of content into the content body or main content area of the Google Business website. Mention summaries of all your products or services, the locations that you service, if it's a service area business. And then you can link out with contextual links out to your branded entity assets from the Google Business website. That's what makes it powerful. And then you can build links to it, by the way, and very aggressively, because it's a Google Business Profile. So that is one of the most powerful parts of the Google Business website, the GB website, is the fact that it's a Google property and you can help with what I call discoverability. Google's going to crawl it. You know it for sure. It's a Google property. Google crawls it. Trust me. So linking out with contextual links to branded entity assets helps Google to start kind of like find these puzzle pieces and starts to form a cohesive picture of the, you know, the brand, the local brand, the local entity, if that makes sense. So that's kind of an analogy I like to use in audits, is talk about like jigsaw puzzles. There are all these little pieces that when you dump out a jigsaw puzzle on a table, there's really no rhyme or reason to it. But as you start to assemble them in order, it starts to create a picture, right? And the more pieces you put together, the more clear that picture becomes. It's the same thing with the semantic web, guys. There's all these bits of data out on the web, and Google tries its best to find all these things and start to assemble them in an orderly fashion to make up a cohesive brand image, entity image. Does that make sense? And so it's in our best interest to help with this discoverability, right? Again, a term for that is informing the knowledge graph, right? You help Google to build the knowledge graph for a local entity. And the way that you can do that is by using Google properties. Google Business website is a perfect opportunity for that. Not just that, but the Google Business posts. Every time you publish a post, use the CTA button to link out to one of your branded entity assets. What is it? It's a Google property. You're giving a direct link through a Google asset to a branded entity asset. You're telling Google, hey, go recognize this as part of my brand, right? Pull that in and add that puzzle piece to the puzzle to make a better picture, cleaner, more clear picture. That makes sense. A sharper image of our brand. Google Business Post, Google Business Website, the G site, G Sheets, all of those things, all Google properties. Blogger, you can do it with Blogger too. We include all of those. So yeah, Captain Morgan said Google crawls GBM, GMBs, GBPs almost instantly. You're absolutely right. And I've talked about this many times before. I'll share it here. It's fine. Let me pull this up. There's another way that you format the URL for Google Business websites and or posts that make them much more effective. It's this right here. And here, why would this be more effective, guys? It's the same. They resolve to the same location. Let me just demonstrate this. You know what? I'll just pull it up from here. Because I already have these URLs extracted. Give me a second. I taught about this on the mastermind last week. So here's what I'm talking about, guys. This right here. No, that's not what I wanted. Wrong one. Abort. Here we go. This. All right. So this is what I was trying to say here. This right here, the Google post format, post URL format. The normal format is this, right? This is what we're used to seeing. Okay. So that would be this version. Let me extend this out a little bit. That's going to be this version of a URL of a Google Business post. That is normal. That's what we usually see, right? So the subdomain that we designate when we publish the site, and then the post ID is there. So that's normally what we see. But we can convert that to this format here. So all we do is we just take the subdomain and we put that here. We take the post ID and we put that here. And now take a look at this. This is on a google.com domain versus a business.site domain. Which do you think is more powerful? Well, why don't we go prove it out? Let's go to Majestic. Let me pause the screen for a minute. Just because I'm in my main account, which client stuff will appear if I'm not careful. So stand by for a minute, guys. Okay. All right. So what I want to show you here is I got in the first version of this here, we're looking at the usual normal format. So I'm going to change this to subdomain. Okay. So this is the subdomain, right, for TreeCareHQ, Winchester.business.site. Well, if we come over here and we look at the subdomain here, look at this, guys. Look at this versus this, right? Okay. Well, that's normal because this is a subdomain that we just created, right? Okay. Well, then let's look at the root domain. The root domain is going to remove the subdomain. Look at the power of .business.site, or the strength according to Majestic. Look at the referring domains. What do we already know what's going to happen here. But what I'm saying is the root domain for .business.site or business.site, excuse me, the root domain is not as powerful, or I guess it's more powerful than the business.google.com. But if we change this to root, look at that. Look at the difference. So what do you think is more effective when they both resolve to the same location? What do I mean by that? So for those of you that don't know what the hell I'm talking about, this is a normal Google business post right here. Right. So this is an inner page. So in other words, when you publish a Google business post, if you have the Google business website published, then it becomes an inner page. You also get a little share URL that, will show up. You can have a map share URL. You can have a SERP share URL. Those are different. But the Google business website, when it publishes, it creates an inner page. That's this here. There's the URL. That's the typical format. But this format here is the exact same post, but much, much higher metrics. You're on the google.com domain here. You see it's the exact same post. If I open this one up, look at view page source, and I'm in Firefox, and fuck, I don't know why Firefox does not give me word wrap for, I don't know why it does that. It drives me nuts. So we're going to go to incognito instead. We'll paste that in, click word wrap or line wrap, whatever. Then I'm going to do a control F. Well, there's the canonical there. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it canonicalizes to itself the business.google.com version of that URL. These index guys, I've ranked these. I'm not kidding. So these are much more powerful. This version of the URL is much more powerful. If you convert your Google business posts into this version of the format or URL, use that for embeds. You can embed these, right? Somebody in our mastermind was saying that they couldn't embed Google business posts. And it was operator error, I promise you, because you can absolutely embed these, right? So go to iframe generator. I'm going to paste that URL, preview. Boom, there's the embed. So it works. Anyways, build links to that, guys. Those index, you can rank those. I've ranked them. I've ranked them for keywords in low competition areas. How do you do that? You put the keyword first, right up at the top. For low competition, I've ranked those. Now for brand searches, I've ranked these often, like you can see them, but these are very powerful, man, when you use them with this version of the format. And by the way, you can do the same thing with the Google business website URL. So going back to that, same thing, this right here, we just take that version of the URL, paste it here and input, where is it? There it is. Same thing. See, this resolves to the same location that this does here, and it's a different format. Anyway, hopefully that's clear, guys.
Money, money, money.
Right on. So build links to the Google business website. Better to build them to that other version of the URL that I just described. Okay, because it's stronger, it's more powerful, it passes more more authority, essentially. You can build links to the Google Maps share URL, right? So we come back to and do embeds, do a lot of embeds. I don't like to build links to the CID map URL because only SEOs do that. Nobody even knows how to get the CID map URL anymore, except for SEOs. If you ask just a layman, a civilian, what a map CID URL is, they're going to look at you like you're crazy. So again, another one would be share URL here. That is a 302 redirect. So it's not about pushing link equity or into the map. It's about a natural looking link profile. Not only that, Google tracks, trust me, Google tracks clicks on these. So if you're doing any kind of CTR manipulation, that's the kind of link you want to send click-throughs to, or click-throughs, right? You want to click on that link because that's an engagement signal, right? So map share URLs are great for that. So you can build links to that. You can build links to the Google business website, and then do a lot of map embeds. Again, go to share, embed a map, and you can do embeds too. There you go. Mark, the effect on rankings of double trailing slashes appear at some of the effect on rankings of double trailing slashes appear at some of a website URLs. How to fix the issue of a URL trailing double slashes. I don't know what you mean by that. I have no idea what you mean by double slash trailing slashes. Sorry, I just don't understand the question. If you can clarify, I'll try to answer it. Okay. Hi guys. Thanks for all the info. What's the best way to do keyword research for local maps and see what the competition is ranking for in maps? And then the question about how to follow me on Twitch. That's a good question. I'm not sure what's the best way to do keywords research for local maps and see what the competition is ranking for in maps? SEMrush will do that. There's a number of tools that I think will do that. I use SEMrush for that, which will show you the keywords that your competitors are ranking for and all that. So SEMrush, but that can be expensive if that's all somebody else in chat probably has some pretty good recommendations. I just use SEMrush for that. So I don't have a better answer for you, but I only use one tool for that, and I have been for years. So I'm sure there are others. If anybody in chat wants to post, that would be great. Last one, and then we'll get into comments for those of you that are mad that I spent so much time on real estate. This one is from Ryan. Ryan says, I have a client in a legal adult entertainment service for men niche. I have to constantly be careful of Google business posts. Don't even use them. Constantly getting Web 2 accounts banned. I can imagine, yeah. YouTube channel banned, even though there is no adult content on nudity. Backlinks are difficult. So I'm wondering what kind of strategies I should use. I was thinking about creating a city guide targeting men in order to drive traffic for the ideal customer, which are men visiting the city, because I can't just keep creating content about the niche because it won't generate enough organic traffic and the content is not acceptable in a lot of places where I need to push out content too. So I was thinking about generating content about nightlife in the city, restaurants in the city, activities for men in the city, and just create a massive guide to the city for men. Or maybe I should just post the content to the blog and don't worry about creating the city guide structure on the website. I don't know. That's a pretty good idea. I mean, I don't know how you prove that out without testing it, though, honestly. I mean, it seems like a pretty logical and a good idea, in my opinion. I would consider doing, I don't know. I mean, you could even do a directory, but like a city directory for men. You know what I mean? Like a particular city. I mean, I'm just using this as an example, but geo directory, which is what I use for my tree service directory, WP geo directory, just so you know, WP geo directory. You could probably do it with that. I don't know. I potentially you could do it with that and build kind of a, you could have offers on there, so you could build an email list. Then you don't have to worry about publishing content and all that. You know what I mean? Like, because once you have a list, that's an asset that you can mail to. So that's totally different, right? You can do a lot more with an email list than you can in this particular type of an industry, is what I'm saying. So you might want to consider that, like, because you could do a directory, a men's guide or city guide for men, whatever directory, and then have different categories on the directory, right? Restaurants, nightlife, bars, breweries, craft breweries, distilleries, that kind of cigar shops, all kind of shit that men like. You know what I mean? Sports activities in this city, that kind of thing. You could probably create a directory with all those different things, and that could bring you could possibly use the directory to also monetize business listings, right? So you can use it to build your adult male related business, but at the same time, you could probably cross monetize it by selling premium listings and or advertising space. You could do list building. There's a number of things you could do with the directory site that's geared for men. Guys, I talk about niche directories all the time. That's a niche directory. It's a niche directory for a particular city geared towards men, but it's a very niche directory, right? It's not maybe industry specific, but it's still a niche directory. So, specialization, Matt, I mean, it works because there's always, not always, but there's usually people that are interested, are very passionate about whatever they're passionate about. And if you can tap into that, right, you can monetize it. So that's a pretty good idea, actually. I'm not going to do it. Pretty good idea, though, in my opinion. My second question is, it took me a year to gradually get to my top 5 for my main money keyword for this business. Then it went down to position 40 and has been stuck there. I can still rank from related secondary keywords, but the main keyword has been stuck for months on end at position number 40 or 40 plus. I recreated some of the web pages, still stuck. I think it's either 20 spammy backlinks that SEMrush says are toxic, or something, to do with exact match keywords being the brand name. That's possible. But by the way, SEMrush is overly sensitive. They're notorious for being overly sensitive for saying that links are toxic. Don't pay a lot of attention to SEMrush's backlink analyses. That said, you can, if you think that there's 20 plus spammy backlinks, you can always disavow them. SEMrush makes it easy to do that, right? Like you just click a little box next to each link and it adds it to a disavow list. You go export that text file, go to the disavow tool and Google and submit it. You can either submit individual URLs to disavow or domains. I usually just go with the domains because it's just easier that way. So you can disavow them. Also, keep in mind, I've experienced this recently. I had a domain that I got hit with an algorithmic penalty in October of last year, a tree service site of mine. And I spent literally 5 months trying to recover that site from the algorithmic penalty. And no matter what I did, I could not recover it. I pulled out every trick up my sleeve that I could possibly think of, guys, and I can't recover the site. I don't know why. I've had that fucking domain for like 8 years and it's produced very, very well. And then all of a sudden, and I wasn't doing anything spammy. I don't know why. I lost 4 Google business locations associated with that asset. And then in October of last year, it just tanked in organic ranking. And I have never been able to recover it. And I've spent countless hours on it. So finally I said, that's it. I found it. I found the same domain with a different extension. I bought that. I started moving because it was a multi-location lead gen asset business. I started moving locations to location pages. So individual location landing pages to subdomains on the new domain. So each city that I had a landing page for, I created a city specific subdomain on the new domain and started moving those to their own WordPress installations on separate subdomains. And every one that I've moved so far has rebounded, not 100%, but like 80%-ish. So sometimes, I mean, again, I was unable to recover that domain that I wanted to. And I spent had I known I was going to spend 5 months and get no traction, I would have just started moving things a lot earlier, if that makes sense. So sometimes, again, sometimes a domain can be penalized and you don't even know it, or it, like in your case, and you can't recover it. Or at least I've been unable to in some cases. And so sometimes it makes sense to move the domain. Right. And what's interesting is I even redirected the location landing page URLs from the original domain that has been penalized to the new subdomains on the new domain extension. It's the same domain, but a different extension. And you would think that if it had a penalty, it would have passed it through that redirect. It didn't. Those locations are, like I said, about 80% recovered. The ones that I have moved, there's still some on the original domain that I haven't moved. So it's just really interesting to not see, like, just changing the domain was able to mostly recover it, if that makes sense. So sometimes that is the only option, in my opinion. Anyway. All right, we got about 10 more minutes. Let's get into comments. This was fun. I enjoyed this today, guys. I usually do. You've got a condo in Costa Rica? Wow, Cecilia, look at you. Yeah, Captain Morgan, I know you're doing, are you streaming too? Are you doing that? I'm trying to get that stream in around. Yeah, it looks like you are. Very good. Again, I got to give Chase Reiner credit for giving me the idea for doing that. It was brilliant idea. I give him 100% credit for that. I think these real estate questions do act as a mental SEO break. Okay. Well, good. So I thought people were complaining. It seems like that was a vote of confidence. Massacre every tree on the eastern seaboard. Google crawls, yeah, instantly. Yes, I agree. Yeah, remember, guys, things don't have to be indexed for Google to crawl it. For links to produce an effect, they don't need to be indexed. They just need to be crawled. You can get movement from links that are crawled. They don't have to be indexed. It can help if they're indexed, but they don't have to be for them to still produce benefit. There's kind of 3 stages, right? There's discovered but not crawled. There's crawled but not indexed. And then there's indexed, right? So there's kind of like 3 stages to a URL being indexed. The first is discovered. The second is crawled. The last is indexed. So you can, discovered but not crawled isn't going to produce an effect. Crawled but not indexed can produce an effect. So keep that in mind. I use subdirectory links too. It's a very advanced and more safest way to build links to the GBP. I agree. Let's see. Has anyone experienced a negative impact from using the CID URL in their link building? I've not seen a negative impact from it, but I can tell you it's a red flag, right? It's a clear indication to Google algorithmically that it's an SEO working on that project. Years ago, maybe not so. And there are some strategic places where it still matters, like it still makes sense. Again, Google Business Website, put a contextual link with the CID map URL in the main content area of the Google Business Website. Why? It's a Google property, guys, the CID, company ID, it's a machine ID. So also in schema and the has map attribute. I can't tell you how many audits I do, and I see in the has map attribute in local business schema, people put the map share URL. Why would you not put the machine ID URL there, right? Like that's precisely what that's for. It's a machine ID for the bots, the search engine bots, right? So put the CID URL there. Another place, the ID page. An ID page, again, very powerful for the entity if done properly. So because it's supposed to be a unique resource identifier that validates the entity information, it gives us some level of control of what data we feed into the semantic web engine, to the semantic web. Does that make sense? The ID page is absolutely one of the most powerful things you can do to establish the local entity, because it gives us a level of control of the data that we feed into the semantic web. So the CID map URL is a perfect spot on the ID page as well. It's another spot for it. How do you get clients fast when you suck at sales? Find somebody that's better at sales to do it for you. Or just understand that you're going to break some eggs to make an omelet, which means do more sales calls. How do you get better at anything, guys? You do more of it. I'm not picking on you, Ryan. Seriously, that's not, just do more of it. I'm not kidding. Understand that you're going to fuck up and lose a bunch of calls. Like you might not close a bunch of sales because you suck at it. But the only way you're going to get better at it is to do more of it. I've talked about this almost every week now. We talk about this, guys. Spin selling, Neil Rackman, spin selling, the spin selling method. This is the spin selling handbook. I've got the book too, but the handbook is a little bit easier because it's more like an instruction manual than a book. Spin selling is by far the most effective strategy I've ever used for learning how to make sales in SEO. Learn it, study it, get the field handbook, the spin selling field handbook, and like just start implementing it. I'm not kidding. Start practicing. Start recording your sales calls. Go back and review your sales calls, the recordings after they're done. Take notes. Figure out where you can improve your process. I'm not kidding, guys. I hated sales. I fucking hated it. And I tried everything I could do to avoid sales calls for years. I tried to do all closings via emails and everything else. And finally, 2 or 3 years ago, in our mastermind, I paired up with 5 or 6 of our mastermind members, and we created a sales mini mastermind meeting accountability group. Every Thursday we would meet for an hour and we would discuss sales, and we'd read books, and almost like a book club. We would read chapters and then talk and discuss through them and I did this every week for a year and a half. We studied multiple books. Another great book is the Mindset of a Sales Warrior by Jason Forrest. I mean, just immerse yourself in sales and in training and audiobooks. I'm not kidding. That's the only way. And it's either find somebody else to do it or just bite the bullet and practice, right? And I don't mean but just understand you're going to book sales calls and know going into them. Like another great book is Richard Fenton, I think it is, Go for No. Look that up. Go to Amazon. Go for No. I think it's Richard Fenton wrote that book. Understand that each time you receive a no or rejection, you're that much closer to a yes, an acceptance, right? So and now I can sell SEO with my eyes closed. I'm not kidding. And I don't have no reservations whatsoever about jumping on a sales call to sell SEO now. And it's only because I've become comfortable through repetition. That makes sense. I'm not kidding. 2 years ago, I would have butterflies in my stomach for a sales call, like maybe not 2, maybe 3 years ago. And I'm sure some of you guys can relate. Now I have no problem whatsoever jumping on a sales call at all. And it's just because of practice and repetition, guys. You'll get more comfortable. Everything, once difficult, now easy, right? Once difficult, now easy. Keep practicing. Another great book for that is Psycho-Cybernetics, Maxwell Maltz. Psycho-Cybernetics will teach you how to visualize and how to overcome self-doubt and things like that. I'm serious. It's Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz is fantastic for helping to kind of reprogram your self-image and things like that, and will help you to become more confident. He also has the Psycho-Cybernetics Foundation, which is run by Matt Fury now. He has there's a whole program. There's also a Psycho-Cybernetics for sales professionals. You can go just look up Maxwell Maltz on Amazon.com, guys, and you'll see there's a bunch of books there. It's a really good series. If you want to get better at sales, like first start with your mindset and then start practicing sales. Seriously, that's the best way to do it. We're almost out of time, guys. Before changing that domain to something new, it's best to exhaust everything. Captain Morgan, I agree. That's why I spent 5 months. It would have been nice to have known that I was going to waste 5 months though, so I could have just pulled the trigger a lot sooner. You know what I mean? Anselmo, no, Build with Bradley was today. I'm going to be traveling tomorrow, so I did post in the Circle community that the Build with Bradley group was today at 2 p.m. So I'm sorry, but that's done for this week. I did post in the group about it, and I also updated the Zoom registration earlier this week. So anyways, that was today. We did it today from 2 to 3 p.m. Is cold calling good, Ryan? It can be, but that's difficult. That's hard. You talk about wanting to get good at sales quick, go door-to-door salesman, like seriously, or cold calling. But boy, you better have balls of steel, like in order to be able to withstand the rejection. I'm not kidding. We talk about demoralizing cold calls. And I know I did door-to-door sales years ago. I tried door-to-door sales. I tried to sell artwork to businesses. No kidding. Like framed artwork. I swear to God, when I lived in Virginia Beach, I tried to do door-to-door sales, selling artwork to businesses. Oh my God, they'd cuss you up and down. Like, trust me, that's tough. I don't recommend that. Try to generate a warm lead somehow or initiate a conversation some way before just interrupting somebody. I mean, you can get good at sales that way if you can withstand the rejection. And that's demoralizing. I don't recommend that. Seriously. That takes a special breed of person to do cold calling. Captain Morgan, 100%, man. You and I think so much alike, dude. I swear to God, we should meet up sometime, man. Pretty much the best solution for any of the ad networks you use. Yeah, I agree. Like if you can warm a lead up by sending them somewhere first, and then they, or even cold email, man, is better than cold calling, in my opinion, because at least you can gauge interest by their if they respond, right? If they reply and things like that, you know that they're raising their hand and saying, I'm at least remotely interested in what you have to say. Straight up cold calling, man, you're literally interrupting people. How do you like it? You know what I mean? I'm not kidding. I mean, with all sincerity, I can't stand, I don't take unscheduled calls. If my phone rings and it's not a scheduled call, I ignore it. It goes to voicemail. So, you know, you got to think you're interrupting somebody's day. Video email is a great way. I mean, I've been talking about that for years. I've used that for years to build my agency. I still do that today. I still do video email stuff, but video email is a great way to warm up prospects. The problem with that is it's hard to do it on a scalable way, because if you're trying to create unique videos that are custom to the prospect you're sending it to, it's always more effective if you do that, but it's a scalability issue then. But again, if you're just trying to get better at sales, and try to initiate sales calls in any fashion that you can. Again, video email is a great way to do that, because you can warm the prospect up a bit before you get on the sales call. It feels like it's almost like they're familiar with you because they can see you in the video, or at least hear your voice, depending on how. I usually have the little picture in picture. So it's a screencast with my little picture in the bottom corner. You know what I mean? So that it's almost like you can build rapport through a video before you ever have a call with them. So there's some familiarity, right? It's a warmer lead that way. That's a good way to do it. Video email is a fantastic way to do that. It's hard to scale, but when you're first trying to, you said, Ryan, you're having trouble, you suck at sales. That's a really good way to kind of pre-warm the prospect up so that when you get on the sales call, it's not quite as awkward or as uncomfortable. And then over time, as you develop your sales skills, you can kind of figure out, you can kind of reduce the front end work that you would do on a video email, if that makes sense, and find other ways that are more scalable for generating leads once you're better at closing or pitching anyways, if that makes sense. Okay, I'm just about done, guys. Sorry, Chris. Are you interested in Baltic Avenue? I'm sorry. You guys are talking about Monopoly. Here's a follow-up question for you. You would like to know how to get more sales calls. Would you like to know? Okay. That's the purpose of the niche directory model, right? Yeah, exactly. The niche directory model is fantastic because, well, now, like I said, because mine ranks, I don't even really do the outbound process. I'm going to. We're gonna ramp that up for the training that we're doing for the hybrid agency stuff. But yeah, when I first started the directory, it was for cold outreach, cold email outreach. That's how I initiated conversations with my ideal prospect. Precisely what you just mentioned, Michael. Because then again, when they reply to the cold outreach email to just confirm their company information is accurate or to correct inaccurate information, that I know that there's somebody on the other side of that email. So when they reply, they automatically go into the sales pipeline and they get started on a nurture sequence and everything else. So that warms them up. And then even if like for Ryan, at that point, that's where now there's at least some contact. They know who you are. And if you're going to cold call, that's the time to do it, if that makes sense, after the response has been received from cold email, right? But even then, there are other ways and better ways to kind of warm that prospect up more so that they actually reach out to initiate scheduling a call. That changes the dynamic of making the sale in like 180 degrees. When you initiate, that's, again, push marketing, when you push your message out onto somebody versus pull marketing, where you attract them to you, right? It's a much easier sale. It changes the kind of the dynamic of the conversation considerably when they're the ones to initiate the conversation over you, right? Anyways, guys, wrapping it up. Sorry, I went a little bit over. Thanks for sticking around.